To slap or not to slap? To slap. We're going to take a look at the US-made Zenith ZF5T plus some upgrades, the SBA5 pistol brace, and the new monolithic MP5 handguards from UTG, all here on this week's Gear Grind. Let's start with our baseline, the Zenith ZF5T, which is basically a US-made clone of the MP5K submachine gun. Fit. The ZF5T is basically a variant of the MP5K, the shorter version of the classic MP5. And thankfully, you get a lot of the base MP5K components that will fit this little subgun. Magazines, handguards, and plate replacements for braces and stocks, all in common on this one, including your trigger packs and pistol grips. On this model, you also get a 1/2x28 thread on the barrel for suppressors. Open and honest, I'm still a bit new to MP5 style firearms, but do pay attention to your upgrades. There's the MP5, MP5K, reverse stretch receivers. It gets a little confusing, so just make sure you're getting compatible upgrades. And all that besides, these are stamped sheet metal receivers, so some upgrades may require some fitting. I had to modify one part on this to fit, more on that later, but I did get it done with a hand file. Feel. This has a stamped steel receiver, a fairly sizable bolt with a lot of hardware for the roller delay action, front trunnion, small chunky barrel. It's a bit of a chunk, but I wouldn't say uncomfortable. If you're coming from the AR platform, you may find that the magazine button release is a little further forward than you'd expect, and the safety is kind of a stretch to reach with your thumb. And with that short barrel, you might feel a little cramped in too. But I find that with a magwell grip and something to keep the gun braced in against your shoulder, it's very comfortable and naturally has that smooth recoil impulse everyone who's ever built an AR-9 is chasing. Overall, really fun, just some things to get used to. Form. Not a whole lot to say here, I think. You're getting what you'd expect. Glossy black stamped steel with a matte polymer grip module and handguard. While not the completely classic MP5, you are getting the Die Hard with a Vengeance vibe with this model. Besides all that, I think the work done on this ZF5T looks great. Sometimes you see really bad blobby welds on the receiver with import MP5 clones, but this US-made model, can't find much fault with it. Function. I have to tell you, if you're used to shooting blowback 9mm AR-15s, you're going to be amazed at how smooth this platform shoots. Even with that shortened action, nothing feels too snappy with this short version. Didn't encounter any failures on our end, so ammo wasn't a liability, nor was the included 30-round magazine. Now, with a roller delayed gun, there is a degree of tuning you can do with the rollers and springs if you have a specific load you're looking to run, but I'd venture a guess and say this will work with most off-the-shelf ammo. And most magazines, but your mileage may vary. You may encounter a very snug fit or a very loose fit depending on who makes your mags. Features. I'm going to say, in a world where you can spend nearly $3 grand on a genuine HK subgun and still have to go through the trouble of getting a brace, potentially tax stamps, having an option that retails for about $1,500 is pretty compelling. All of Zenith's ZF5 line starts around that price, but if you want more mags or hard case, you'll pay a few $100 extra. And still have some scratch on hand to get the upgrades you'll definitely want. You can absolutely do the single point sling trick with the ZF5T, but you'll probably be better off with a pistol brace. Speaking of, let's talk about this little guy. This is the newest brace from SB Tactical, the SBA5. The beauty of the SBA5 is that it fits on all mil-spec buffer tubes like you'd see on an AR-15. It adjusts the same way a stock does and has a decent but not completely rattle-free fit. So how does that factor in when you're looking at a bufferless design like an MP5? Because there's now plenty of options on the market for putting folding adapters that accept mil-spec stocks and braces, to make this work, I'm using a Midwest Industries MP5K Picatinny end plate along with their M4 beam folding adapter. The beam is a great option for a setup like this because a buffer tube is just a hollowed tube. It's not super secure. Here you get all the structure you want plus the fold mechanism, and it's compatible with any mil-spec stock or brace. There's not much to write home about here. As long as a brace is comfortable, stays in the right place, and it's easily adjustable, it's doing its job. The cheek weld, in my opinion, places this ahead of most pistol braces on the market, and the new design of the rubber for the rear is both compact and very usable, no matter what your needs happen to be. In the case of this whole setup, I think it works very well. With the Midwest folding beam, you don't have an issue with this brace swinging into folded or deployed. It stays nicely in place. I'd recommend it, and I'll have a full video breakdown on this in a future video. Features. As far as braces are concerned, there's always some value baked into the cost of goods themselves. You can pay around $100 or so for a brace, more if it's for a specialty platform, or you can go the SBR route, pay $200 and still have to buy the stock you want. Paperwork, money, extra time. And I think your value per dollar for a brace that's comfortable, usable, half the price of Uncle Sam's admission with some generational improvements, yeah, grab these while you can. Now, for an all-in-one optics mount and modernized handguard, this new monolithic M-LOK handguard from UTG for your MP5 and MP5K variants. Fit. This isn't a true monolithic design. Let's get that out of the way. It's a monolithic top cover that joins the receiver and the top of the handguard to the cocking tube, plus a handguard component that wraps around the bottom. You secure the top section with 4 locking lugs that tighten around the bends in the receiver. It's a little fiddly at first, but once it's locked down, it's pretty rigid, and as a bonus, it's non-destructive. No new holes to tap into your receiver, nothing. Just tighten the lugs around it, but do watch out. MP5 variants that have welded-on optics rail are probably not going to work here, sorry to say. UTG does make this for MP5 full-size handguards and MP5K variants, so just choose the one that's right for your gun. Feel. A very consistent thing with UTG's Pro line is the attention to detail. If you're like me and you still remember UTG's days of being regarded as airsoft quality, you're going to be pleasantly surprised with the US-made Pro line. Really nice matte anodized finish here, no sharp edges, and overall a really smooth design that works. I was a little concerned about rattle in the handguard section, but was pleasantly surprised with a rigid and easy fit, at least on the ZF-5T here. Form. So, matte finished aluminum on top of gloss finished steel. Somehow I think it works. The way that the monolithic design covers the receiver, wraps around the handguard, and kind of matches the polymer bits, I don't hate it, that's all I'm saying. It's a product that's designed to modernize the MP5, and I think it delivers in look and function. More on that in a minute. Purists out there are probably not going to enjoy this, and you're valid for that, but I like red dots, I like lights, and I'd rather have something that's a little unusual and still functional. Speaking of function. Okay, so it's a bolt-on optics rail for a platform that is heavily dependent on properly bending a sheet metal receiver into shape. The key metric here is whether the locking lugs work and keep our optics zeroed in. And I was a little skeptical, but this product did actually work just fine in my experience. As long as you put some thread locker in your lug screws, the fairly mild recoil of the MP5 isn't really going to shift your optic off center. Plus, since the handguard and upper rail are linked together, you're getting even more points of contact on the receiver. I wasn't able to do a long form test of this by any means. I think at a certain point in your round count, you should check the lugs and make sure you're fine. Probably the same time you're looking at replacing springs for your rollers. Biggest feature for a product like this is the features you can add onto it. I've got AT3's first green dot sight up on the top. I can do a white light, hand stop, foregrip, whatever you need. And on a platform that's pushing 60 without nearly the level of customization and modularity you get in an AR-15, that's a huge plus. And at the price of what I'd consider fair game for a big brand free float AR handguard, it's a worthwhile investment.